Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for our webinar, Subject Line Savvy. My name is Jill, and I'm the Training and Education Manager here at VerticalResponse. And today I'm going to take you through the ins and outs of subject lines. They're pretty important. They're basically what gets people to open your email. So I have a lot of info to share with you. As always, there will be time for Q&A at the end. So if you do think of some questions along the way, go ahead and type those into the box that you see on your GoToWebinar window, and I will be happy to answer all of those questions at the end. This webinar will probably be about 30 or so minutes long, depending on how much I talk, and then, like I said, Q&A at the end. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to talk about today. First of all, I'm going to talk a bit about the importance of subject lines, and like I said, you probably know, but I'm going to go over it anyway. We're going to break down the subject line a bit and take a look at some of the components that go into that. Do's and don'ts about writing subject lines, some examples of great subject lines, and then I have some resources for you at the end. So first of all, subject lines are pretty important. Next to the from label, subject lines and from labels are what get your readers to open your email in the first place. The from label tells them who's sending the email. The subject line tells them why they should open the email. So when you're creating your email, you need to think about what is going to be expected in your email from your readers, what they're thinking you're going to be sending based on what you promise at sign up or what they know of your business. Also, it should be something that is interesting and catchy and gets your readers to want to see what's happening inside your email. Now, the subject line, although it would be fun to be able to just write anything you want to, there are some rules around creating subject lines due to CAN-SPAM, CASTLE, and a variety of other laws out there in the world. So essentially, the laws in different parts of the world, including the US, say that your subject line has to have something to do with your email. It has to have something to do with the content, a story you're talking about, a product you're selling, whatever it is. It can't trick people into opening the email. CASTLE, if you don't know, is the new Canadian law. It has the same sort of rules about subject lines that the CAN-SPAM, the US law, has. So just keep in mind when you're creating your subject line, they should be fun. It should be eye-catching. It just can't trick people into opening the email. So with that being said, let's take a look at the components of what's going on in the inbox when your email comes in. So hopefully none of this is new, but let's just make sure. First of all, of course, we have the from label. So that's who's sending the email. Generally speaking, you want that to be your company name. First of all, that's where your readers are looking to find out who's sending the email. So it should be something that they recognize. Also, if you're using your company name in the from label, then you don't need to use it in the subject line. The subject line should be fairly short, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but most email programs have a limitation to how many characters they're going to show on the subject line. So if you have a really long subject line, your readers are going to miss some of the information. And if what you're doing is adding your company name in your subject line and you have the company name in your from label, you're just wasting space. So if you have the from label saying your company name, that opens up what you can put in the subject line. The next part on here is the pre-header text. Now, I talk a lot about pre-header text in other webinars. We have it in our blog posts and in our guides. But it's something that I think a lot of people don't understand or don't know that it has a name. You probably know what it is. It might be something that you haven't seen or you don't know the words, but you have seen it in an email. So pre-header text is basically the first line of text in your email. And some email programs will pull that up into the subject line. And so it's something that's working with your subject line to convince your readers to open your email. So this is an example of our email. And our email has, our newsletter that we send out has our blog posts in it. And so we use the blog post titles as our subject line. So we have two different blog post titles in our subject line, plus our pre-header text is also other articles in there. So this is allowing our recipients to take a look at all the different things that are available in the email before they've even opened it. So it's a good teaser to have people to see what else is going on in there. Your pre-header text should be something that works with your subject line, but you don't want to repeat your subject line. They are already seeing your subject line. Prepare something different, create something slightly new to compare to your subject line, or pull in a different article, a different product, whatever the purpose of your email is. Get a slightly different spin on what you're talking about for your pre-header text. Now, pre-header text, as I said, is the first line of text in your email. It's called pre-header because usually it comes before the header image at the top of your email. So if you have like a logo or you have a logo that has some links in it, that's your header. And this is pre-header because usually it's above that information. Now if you look at my example down here, you can see this is the subject line, and it's the same one you see up there. There's a little ad right here, which we don't use alt text in, because if we did, the alt text would get pulled up into the subject line instead. And then the next line here is our pre-header. So it says a guide to Google Webmaster Tools plus how to set up LinkedIn sponsored updates. And you can see up here in my inbox, that's exactly what's getting pulled up there as pre-header. And then the next line says view online, view past editions. So if there wasn't any pre-header in there, what would get pulled up into the subject line would say view online. I do see this a lot in my own inbox. You probably do too. But view online is not really something that's going to compel your readers to open your email. So if they're on the fence with the subject line you have, your pre-header should be something that pushes them over and makes them want to open your email. It shouldn't be something that tells them how to unsubscribe or how to view the email in another browser. So that's basically what pre-header does. If you don't have it up at the top of your email like we do, and you don't have a header image up at the top, it'll be whatever the first line of text is. So it could say something like, Dear Bob, here's your July newsletter, if that's the first line of text. It's important to know this because not only does this show up, this is an example of my Gmail that I use, but also mobile devices use pre-header text. So just remember, your mobile readers are going to be seeing the first line of text with your subject line. And it's just the way it's set up. You can choose not to put something at the top of your email for pre-header text, but that doesn't mean that the program isn't going to pull something in. So in this way, you have control over what's getting pulled into the subject line and hopefully convincing your readers to open your email. So let's talk a little bit about how to write a good subject line. So these are the do's of subject line writing. So as I said, you want to keep it pretty short. Generally speaking, most email programs will let you see around 40 to 50 characters, which is around 10 words or so. Now, you could choose to have a longer subject line. You just have to keep in mind that your readers will only see so much of it depending on the email program they have. And so some of your subject line would get cut off. That's why usually having a short subject line is going to work better, because your readers can see the whole thing instead of just seeing part of it that's getting truncated. And also on mobile devices, they have a slightly smaller viewing area. So if you have a really long subject line, that'll be really tough for them as well. If you do have a long subject line, try not to let it get cut off in something that's really important. So like a date or a discount or something like that. One way to get around that to avoid having it cut off is putting the most important information at the front of the subject line. So regardless of the email program being used to read the email, your readers are going to get all the important information in the first couple of words instead of at the end of the subject line. Your subject line could be something that you use to offer a benefit. Why should your reader want to open your email? Why should they care about the content? Have your subject line tell them exactly what's going on and what is going to happen if they open your email. So, for example, up here I have one that says 50% off now. 50% off is probably not I mean, it's a good deal, but that's not necessarily the benefit for your reader. The benefit is if they buy it online, they don't have to wait in line to make a purchase. This is great during the holidays, for example. So the benefit is actually buying now means there won't be any lines. And that is what you want your reader to think about. That's what's going to make them care about the content in your email. If you have an offer or if you have an incentive, put that in the subject line. It's something that really can get people to want to open your email. And then also create a sense of urgency. So, is there a time limit to what is happening with an event? Is it 2 more days to sign up before your event? Is the product or service that you offer going to have a price increase in a month? Maybe they should buy it now. So you want to use dates to get your readers to want to open your email. You can also use things like, end Saturday, if you're not using the date. What you don't want to do is yell at your readers with all caps or exclamation points or tell them that they're never going to get this. But you can still create a sense of urgency without causing your reader to panic or feel like they're going to miss it. Maybe they're really busy and they missed this lunchtime sale you had today, and now they feel bad that they missed out on the sale. So you can create a sense of urgency without causing a lot of problems for the readers. Or the same with your offers or incentives, and that's something that you can do, use action words for that. So you can use things like save, join, get a big discount, watch for our super sale coming soon, whatever you have happening, you can use those action kind of words. So a little more on the do's of your subject lines. Test often. Now this is something that's pretty important for anything you're doing in your email, but especially your subject lines. Because the subject line, as I said, is pretty important and it helps get your readers to want to open your email in the first place. But what do your readers want to see in the subject line? That's the tricky part. And you can create an email that gets a good open rate, but there's still people who aren't opening it for whatever reason. So if you test out different kinds of subject lines, like how you're creating it, what information you're putting in it, and testing them against each other to see what your readers are most interested in, can give you a lot of insight into not only your readers, but what's going to work for your business. So, a lot of times what you can do, especially with testing, you can just split your list. You can do it's called an A/B split test, and then test one type of subject line on one list and then another subject line with the other list and see which one is going to work better for you. I think testing in email marketing is pretty fun and really interesting because, at least for us, our readers never do what we expect. We're always like, oh, they're going to do whatever, and they do something completely different. I know it's something that does take a little bit of time, but you can create emails that are really effective for your readers. So also use something that is current for your readers. There's all different kinds of things that are happening in the world around you, and you can have different current events as something to create a subject line from. So this is a screenshot, obviously recently from my inbox. It was all 4th of July related. But it could also be, something else that's also summertime. So it could be a summertime theme to your subject lines right now. We have back to school coming. Not only will you probably have some kind of back to school something, but your subject line could have something to do with that as well. So, using big news or current events that everybody's talking about is something that can be really helpful to getting attention. The World Cup is still going on. That's kind of a fun thing to put in your subject line to get people's attention. It could be weather related. If it's a big snowstorm, you don't have to shovel to get to our website, whatever it is that you're looking for. You can also use personalization. Now, there are some who say personalization gets a little big brotherish. So I would say if you're going to personalize the subject line, you're going to want to do it with like a first name only. I know personally I hate it when I get an email that has my full name in it. I'm like, why do you have to put my whole name in there? I already know my name. I don't need the whole thing in there. But putting a first name in there can get people's attention, and it can be something that makes them feel like they know you're talking to them. If you have information about a product or service that they've used from your business, then you could also personalize that. You could say, hey, you recently bought, or, it's like, hey, we have, fill in the blank, Xerox cartridges for your printer on sale this week, or we have paper, whatever it is that your product is or your service offers, then you could include that kind of information in the subject line as well. You would need to have that information in your list if you're using VR, and we can pull that into the subject line. You can merge it in there. Again, that might be something that you want to try testing. Some people respond really well to personalization and some people don't. And what's interesting is that more people are okay if you personalize the email, the content of the email or the body of the email. So if it says, "Hi Bob," rather than "Dear valued customer," people respond more to personalizing the content in the email, and they feel the subject line shouldn't be personalized, and some people are like, oh, it's great. So again, that's something that you might want to test, and if you do decide to personalize your subject line, take a look at your stats to make sure you haven't had a dip in opens or something like that, because your readers will definitely tell you if they're having a problem with the personalization or not. And it doesn't necessarily have to be their name. If you know like where they live in general, they live in Idaho, then you could personalize that. Everyone in Idaho is getting a discount, or everyone in Idaho is coming to this event and you should too. Whatever is happening, you can certainly use that as personalization as well. And this next one is also somewhat controversial, but you can certainly test this out. I have examples of do's and don'ts for this particular one. You've all probably noticed a lot of people have been using symbols in their subject lines lately. I know there's always at least 2 or 3 emails I get every day that have a symbol in the subject line. And if you do it sparingly, I think it works. It can be really fun and it can be really eye-catching. But if you do a lot of symbols, or if every time you do a subject line you put a symbol in it, then it can start getting old. So I think it's something that can really catch people's eyes, but it also can be really annoying after a while. So test that out and see how that works for you. Personally, as a person reading an email, I'm okay with it as long as there's more going on in the subject line. And also one thing to note about symbols as well is that only certain phones will show the symbols as created. I know my phone, for whatever reason, doesn't show symbols in the subject line when I'm looking at it on my phone. And so I end up just with a square, and I'm always like, oh, I wonder what that was. So just keep in mind, not everybody's going to see the symbols, so you want to have a balance in your subject line with a symbol, plus you need some words in there as well. So let's take a look at the don'ts. There's a few don'ts as well. Don't wait until the last minute to write your subject line. And I know a lot of people do, but if you forget to go back and fill in your subject line, or you use what is in the next bullet there, you use a placeholder and you forget to change it, that's what goes out. This is a test, TBD. And I've seen this happen so many times. I get so many emails in my inbox where the subject line has not been filled in because somebody thinks, I will go write it later. I'll wait until I know exactly what I'm putting in my email and then I'll fill it in. But then people forget. So write your subject line, fill that in, then create your email. You can always go back and tweak your subject line if you end up finding that it's slightly different than what you were planning on it having, or your email having, but putting in a filler is even worse. Honestly, it can be really bad for your marketing, and then you feel like you have to send your email out again, and then you risk having people being annoyed because you're sending to them twice. So try to avoid this issue happening in the first place just by putting in a good subject line to start with. You also want to try to keep things like the word spam or unsubscribed out of your subject line. Even if you're writing something about spam, if you've written a blog post about the new canned spam law or the new spam law in Canada, try to keep that out of your subject line, because that actually can cause issues, especially if you're using an ESP like vertical response and somebody hits reply. That could cause a problem. If the word unsubscribe is in the subject line and somebody hits reply, they're going to be unsubscribed, because that's how people can unsubscribe from your mailing list. So there are certain words you want to keep out of your subject line to avoid having any issues for your readers. You don't want them to accidentally get unsubscribed. Do not overuse or abuse punctuation. It just looks annoying. It could look like you're yelling at people, having all of those exclamation points, which is the same as the next point. Don't write your subject line all in caps. Again, that's yelling online, and so you want to make sure you're not yelling at your readers. They would appreciate that. The one thing I would say about that, though, is if you want to create a subject line that has a focal point, like one word could be all in caps. Maybe it's your new service that you're offering. You could put that all in caps, or if you're having a special deal, put that in caps. So have one word in caps so that it's eye-catching, but don't do all of them, because again, otherwise it's going to be something that looks like you're yelling at your readers, and you don't want to do that. Don't be misleading. As I said, this is something that goes against the spam laws in various parts of the world, but you want to make sure that what information you're putting in your subject line is what your readers are going to get. Again, it's what they're looking for, and they signed up to receive specific content for you. So if you're not providing that content, but your subject line says you are, then you're going to really annoy them and they'll unsubscribe. As I said, the from label should be your company name, and you don't want that in your subject line. Again, you have a limited amount of space, and that's the same with the pre-header. So those should be three separate things. Your from label should not be part of your subject line, and your subject line should not be part of your pre-header. They should be things that work together. Together, your reader will see all the information they need, but they should be things that are different with different information so that you have a little more room to get across all the great stuff in your email. Don't waste space with filler words. So that's like things like writing hello in your subject line, or anything that doesn't really add much value. Again, you have around 10 words or so that you can put in a subject line, and so you don't want anything that's not going to give your reader the information that they need. And don't panic your readers. I kind of mentioned this on the do's. You know, don't make your readers feel like something terrible is going to happen if they don't take up your offer that you have in there. You know, don't say something like immediate response required unless it's somebody that you're working with, because the readers of your email are probably not going to have the same sort of need to get back to you right away. Also, don't say don't use the word urgent or breaking news if it isn't any of those things. That's just really exaggerating, and it could let your readers think that you're just trying to trick them into opening the email because you're not sending them anything urgent. Also, if somebody doesn't open their email right away and your subject line says urgent, then they're going to wonder what terrible thing happened or what did they miss. So you can have fun in your subject line, just try not to freak out your readers with it. So here is a subject that comes up a lot. Are there bad words that you can put in your subject line that cause your email to go to spam? Yes and no. So the way spam filters work these days is a little bit different than they worked even just a few years ago. It used to be that, yeah, you could put things like the word credit, work from home in your subject line, and that could cause your email to go to spam. But most spam filters are looking at a lot more than just those words. So while having work from home in your subject line could get your email dinged, and they'll be looking at the rest of the content, It doesn't necessarily mean it'll go to the spam folder. Most ISPs are looking at how people interact with emails. They look at the content of the email. So you could potentially have some issues in some systems if you have work from home in your subject line, but it doesn't automatically mean everywhere across the board it's going into a spam folder. And the biggie, free, this used to be one of those things everybody would say, don't use the word free, it'll put your email into the spam box. That's not true anymore. Again, it depends on the words, it depends on how you're using it, and you probably see the word free every single day in a subject line in your inbox, because free shipping has to be the most overused phrase in email marketing. Granted, not everybody's going to be using that who's on this call. You know, if you're a nonprofit and you're not actually shipping anything, or you have a software program and you're not shipping anything, then you will be lucky that you won't actually have to try to use this word or avoid using this word. But if you're a retailer and you have an online business, free shipping is everywhere. This was like 2 months ago. I took this screenshot and I marked all the places in this small piece of my inbox where the word free shipping came up, and it's 3 times in subject lines, those are the pink ones, and it was 3 times in pre-header text. And in this one on the bottom, it was in the subject line and in the pre-header text. So free shipping does not, or the word free does not keep your email from going to the inbox. It obviously will go to the inbox with the word free in the subject line. What you want to think about is put the word free shipping in your email. As you can see, a lot of people offer free shipping. It's probably lost some of its ability to get people to open an email, because people expect it at some point. At some price point, if you're selling some retail type of thing, people expect free shipping. Put it in your email. Mention it in your email. Don't put it in your subject line or your pre-header, because it's just going to get lost with all of these other things that everybody else is offering with free shipping. So these are some some subject lines that I pulled from my inbox recently, and who created them, just to give you an idea of some fun things people are doing, but they're still following all the rules. They're fairly short. Well, there's one that has free shipping. Most of them don't say free shipping. They're fun, they're short, and they're in compliance with the law. So the first one I think is really fun because it has little fireworks in symbols, but it also says bang. So if for some reason my phone, for example, or whatever program I'm using is not showing the symbols in my subject line, it still goes along with the theme of July 4th recipe ideas. There's a Happy Monday surprise. That's always a fun thing because it's Monday and nothing good happens on Mondays, right? You're invited to a summer cocktail party. That's kind of a fun thing. It had all the stuff you would need to have a cocktail party outside on your patio. That was the content of the email, but the subject line was really fun. Number 4, I get her emails, and so I expect them to be unusual in the subject lines. It says, "Psst, hey bub, come here." And so now you're wondering what in the heck is going on in this email. And so she had some information about what was going on with her business, and that was really fun. Orbitz had change your altitude, which is also really fun for this time of year. Number 6 is from the World Wildlife Federation, and it said, "This American icon needs your help." But I didn't know what the American icon that needed my help was. I assumed it was an animal, but it didn't say, which piqued my curiosity, so I opened it to find out what it was. So that was different. It went along with the 4th of July patriotic thing that was happening with a lot of the emails, but it didn't have anything. It didn't say July 4th. It didn't have a firecracker. It just kind of went with it. So that was a nice way of using a cultural event that was happening without going overboard. There was also a perfect savings for Midsummer's Night, ta-da, summer's top performers. Lunchtime special, I think those are kind of fun, having lunch or a specific time for shopping. These are online ones, so that's a little easier than having to run out of the office. The perfect summer picnic, it's definitely that time of year, and this was from the American Diabetes Association, so they had tips on, healthy picnics, but it's still something really relevant to this time of year. And save on summertime refreshment from Starbucks, and that was from Starbucks. So you can always do something kind of fun. Like I said, these are fairly short. They're to the point. It had everything to do with what the content in the email was, and they didn't do anything to break rules. There's no one's yelling. There's one exclamation point, and they still had a good time creating their subject lines. So I have a Hall of Shame too. I just have a couple. First of all, the top one is a symbol, and that was the only thing they put in their subject line. There was no words. There's no words in the subject line. It was just a symbol. And then the free shipping and savings are the pre-header, and it was repeated twice. So that was kind of a little mix-up there. And again, on my phone, the happy face was just a little box. I had no idea what was going on with this email. The other ones, I took the company names out, but it was the company name Weekly News, company name June Update. Not that those aren't effective for a newsletter, but it's not telling me why I should open it. And I'll think about, oh, I know what sort of stuff they usually send, and then decide if I'm going to open it or not. Because I don't know what they're really sending this time. I can only think about what I know they've sent in the past. So I know it's hard if you're sending a newsletter to have something that's different, but try using an article title in your subject line instead of saying this month's newsletter, and see if you get a little higher uptake in your interactions on your emails, because it is a little more eye-catching if you actually say what's happening in the email than just saying it's the July newsletter. So these are subject line starters. I know not everybody is selling products on this webinar. But these are actually from one of our guides, which I'm going to talk about at the end here. But we do have a subject line guide. And I know it's kind of hard sometimes to figure out what you're going to put for a subject line. So you can take something like this and then insert your product. You could put your company name in here. Actually, you wouldn't need your company name in there. You could put your product in there or whatever you want to do, and use these as a starting point for creating your subject lines. The other thing that you can do is take a look in your own inbox like I just did. I showed you some of those really cool subject lines people have come up with, and see if you can find inspiration. You don't need to copy exactly what somebody else has done as a subject line, but you can get some inspiration and apply it to your own email marketing. So, sometimes it's a little easier if you get something like this where people have done some of the work for you. One of the things that I have noticed, and it has been going on for a while, is that people like numbers. We find this in our blog posts, but it also works in subject lines. So like this one says 5 days to save, 5 tips for whatever your topic is, using your service. And if you put a number in there, people really like it. This works really well in holiday marketing as well. You can create like a top 10 list, and that can have a big impact on your readers opening the emails. So these are just some ideas. And like I said, I have a guide you can download if you need some more of those. So one last thing is creating your subject line. And I don't know if you noticed this, but some people's creating their subject lines were slightly different than other ones. Generally speaking, you're going to want to write your subject line as you would a title. So if you were creating a blog post and you had a title, or if you were titling an article, so you're going to capitalize the first words in your title, and then articles are lowercase, so like a and the. If you want, you can use a spell checker, and I would suggest, if you're not using a spell checker, that you also have somebody just take a quick look at your email and your subject line to make sure there's no errors in it. because an error in your subject line can cause a problem with making your readers not want to open your email. It also just kind of makes your business look a little sloppy, so try to keep your eye on any grammatical or spelling errors. There's a couple resources on this slide for creating your subject line correctly. So titlecapitalization.com is kind of a cool website. All you do is put in your subject line or your title, and they'll show you where you need to capitalize it. And they use all these rules, and if you want, you can see why certain words are being capitalized or not, but then you know you've done it correctly. AP Style Book also has rules on formatting your subject lines or your titles correctly. And of course, dictionary.com can help make sure you're spelling things well. Also, you want to be consistent with your subject lines and how you're creating it. It could be that you don't capitalize anything in what you're doing and it's part of your branding. And if that's the case, then certainly do that. You may get some flack because people love to give their opinion about stuff. If they feel you've misspelled something or you've done something incorrectly, they'll give you feedback on that. They won't necessarily give you feedback when something has been done really well. But if it's something that's part of your branding, like maybe the name of your product or the name of your company is always in lowercase letters, then you don't want to use the rules for formatting. You're going to want to keep it in lowercase to stay with your brand. So just make sure everything looks good, but if there's something specific to your brand, then by all means go by that. So as I said, there are some resources for you. We have a couple of blog posts. Actually, we have a lot of blog posts on subject lines. And these are a couple. There's a couple more on there. If you do a search on our blog for subject line, you'll see them all. We have tons of blog posts, though, and they're all about marketing in a variety of ways. So you can always find help there. We blog about 5 times a week, so there's a lot of information there. We also have guides. As I mentioned, the 10 starter subject lines are actually in the guide, Savvy Subject Line Writing for Success. So you might want to take a look at that for some ideas and for some more information about what we talked about today. We also have subject line starters or conversation starters. If you go to our blog and then click on tools, you'll see the conversation starter there. And it's basically like Mad Libs. You just fill in a little information and then our system will create subject lines or conversations, things you can use on Twitter. You can basically use all of that stuff just with a few little things that you fill in. So those are all free. You don't need to sign into anything. You don't need to sign up for anything. You can use all of those things as you need.